Chapter 9 continued. Brennan, stop pacing. You're giving me a headache, Tori said with amazing calm as she sipped the coffee in her hand. How can you sit there acting as though nothing's happened? He retorted angrily. Because, unlike you, I have the assurance that Anya can take care of herself. She's not a helpless little girl, Bren. She knows how to survive. And because if she didn't stay calm, she'd lose her mind. Brennan snorted and resumed pacing. Tori just glared at him when he didn't stop. Sean limped in the door, stopping all motion in the room. I think we found our trail. Sam stayed behind, so he can start out first thing, he said, collapsing on the couch and taking Tori's cup of coffee from her to swallow a few hasty gulps of the steaming liquid. What did Sam say exactly? Brennan demanded impatiently. He sent me back for food and reinforcements. He told me to tell you that the ranch is still first and that we'll find her, Sean replied, taking another swig of coffee. That settles it. Brennan, you, Blake, and April will stay here, Tori said, putting up a hand to stop Brennan's protests. Sean, you and I are going to join Sam in the morning. Why can't I go? Brennan demanded. You still have a head injury, and Anya would never forgive either of us if you got hurt trying to find her. The ranch is still first, Brennan, she insisted. He sighed and nodded reluctantly. Bring her home, he told them. Anya rubbed her aching wrists when Jonathan released her to eat. He glared at the swelling with distaste. Thanks for the souvenir, she said sarcastically, and was rewarded with a harsh slap. She tasted blood and her eyes watered with the pain. She blinked them back the best she could. She would not cry. She would not. I don't want you talking. Not at all. I will make no more exceptions. You may only talk to answer any questions I might have for you, Jonathan said with finality. The silence stretched. Why didn't you like me? Jonathan asked quietly a while later. I didn't really know you, Anya replied truthfully. She hadn't known him long. Not that she had liked what she did know of him, but she thought it would be wise not to mention that little detail. What do they say when they talk about me? They say that they're disappointed that you didn't try. He slapped her again. Didn't try what? She glared at him. Answer me, he demanded, nearing hysteria. Stop hitting me and I will. She rubbed her cheek against her shoulder to ease the sting and glared at him. Jonathan narrowed his eyes at her, but he couldn't hold her stare. He suddenly sighed. Fine, now answer the question. You didn't try to get along with anyone. When you did ask questions, it wasn't about the person you were talking to, making it seem like you wanted to gossip rather than get along. Jonathan snorted. They were all idiots. He should have known better than to sign on with a second-rate ranch like Wild Running. He let the rage build up to consume everything else he was feeling, but it didn't last, and the soreness of his body and his frustration at himself slowly pushed the rage away. They had ridden hard throughout the long, hot day, and he wasn't used to being in the saddle for more than an hour, 2 at most. He was also annoyed that he'd chosen Galaxy for Anya to ride, since the old geezer couldn't keep up with his much younger horse, and they'd gone a lot slower than he'd planned. He hated making mistakes. Get some sleep, he told Anya. We'll be moving again soon. Sam watched the moon slowly fade as the sun started edging upwards. The birds had just started singing. He hadn't slept much, hadn't been able to stop worrying about Anya, so he'd sat in the dark and prayed for most of the night. He saddled Dancer, who was as eager to get going as he was, and left marks where he had been, following the still fresh trail that would lead to where Anya had spent her night. Finding it was harder than he'd thought it would be. It was tucked neatly into a ridge of trees that blocked it from sight. The only thing that gave it away was the smell of ashes still lingering in the air. Sam laid a calming hand on Dancer's neck as she pranced in place, wanting to keep moving. When she was still, he dismounted and cautiously approached the campsite on foot. It was empty, but there had clearly been 2 people camped there, and knowledge left a foul taste in his mouth. He had already suspected, but couldn't be sure until now. Not until he saw the indentation of a spur in the ground. Jonathan was the only person he knew who wore the fancy spurs to go with his fancy boots and cliched Western gear. He mounted up again, the birds now singing with full force, and the spectacular dawn a gorgeous display in the direction he was riding. Not that he noticed the beauty in birdsong. He was fully focused on the tracks leading away from the campsite toward his woman and the madman who held her prisoner. The thunder of hooves from behind him had him reining Dancer in and turning in his saddle to wait for his reinforcements. Sam, have you found anything? Sean asked, the first to approach him. Only the campsite a while back, Sam said quietly. Yeah, we noticed that. It was hard to miss with the stick standing in the middle of the trail right beside it, Tori replied wryly. He nodded, but was frowning. Keep quiet. I could hear you 2 coming a mile away. He looked from one to the other and sighed. Jonathan's got her. Sean nodded grimly, having arrived at the same conclusion from the same clue. Will you find her, Sam? Tori asked, moving up beside him. No, I'll find her. You are going back. Tori snorted. Not a chance. I'm coming, and there's nothing you can say that will change my mind. Sam shook his head and turned back toward the trail. Keep up, then, he said, and nudged Dancer forward. Jonathan finally reined in and looked around the clearing he'd chosen for the showdown. He nodded to himself and dismounted. He dragged Anya off Galaxy and tied her to a tree before hobbling Sun nearby. Anya desperately wanted to know what he was planning, but she didn't dare say anything anymore for fear of his wrath. She'd defied him too often already. How much would you say Tori loves this horse? Jonathan asked conversationally as he pulled a knife out of his boot, eyeing the old mare at the end of the reins he held. Anya's eyes widened with sudden fear for the older gelding. I can't say, she replied honestly. Jonathan snorted. Don't worry, I know how much she loves him. Will she still love him, you think, when he's all carved up? He didn't wait for her answer, simply started moving the knife toward the helpless animal. Anya sat there, silently crying as Jonathan tortured Galaxy. She was powerless to stop it and had only earned herself more pain fighting against her bonds in an attempt to get to the suffering horse, to stop Jonathan. Her wrists were bleeding profusely, and she didn't care. She had never before witnessed something so horrible. The pain in her heart had overcome whatever physical pain she was feeling. Anya had never been able to stand seeing an animal in pain, and she finally had no choice but to close her eyes against the sight, tears leaking through, her throat raw from yelling and cursing the man, no, the monster in front of her. Jonathan stood back and laughed at the gelding, plunging and straining away from him. His eyes rolled back in terror, blood seeping from the multiple wounds Jonathan had bestowed upon him. How do you like me now, Tori? He cried and slashed at the terrified horse again. Jonathan, stop! Sam yelled as he led the charge into the clearing. He could hear Tori's cry as she got a visual on what was going on. Jonathan snarled and pressed his knife to Galaxy's sweat-soaked chest. Come any closer and I finish him, he warned. The three riders reined their horses to a halt. Tori, come get your horse, Jonathan invited with a sick smile. He missed you. Tori shuddered, but dismounted and walked haltingly forward before Sam or Sean could stop her. Please don't hurt him any more, she begged as she approached. I'm only doing to him as you did to me, Tori. You cut me up with your words. You hurt me and you aren't sorry. He motioned to the horse. He's taken your punishment. How does that make you feel? He demanded. Tori sobbed and fell to her knees, suddenly realized that Anya was always talking about when she went on about Jesus and salvation, about sacrifice. I don't want him to suffer on my account, she sobbed. It's too late, Jonathan said. He already did. With that, he plunged a knife into Galaxy's heart and the old gelding fell down. Rage sent adrenaline through Tori's system and she tackled Jonathan, a feral cry torn from her lips as she lunged, heedless of the knife still in his hand. Sam and Sean leapt off their horses to help her. Tori fell to the ground on her bottom, her eyes going wide as she touched her side and looked down at the blood staining her fingers. He got me, she muttered in shock and awe and fell over. Sean, help Tori, Sam barked as he took hold of Jonathan. He kept him still with one hand and pulled Galaxy's bridle off with the other, using the leather to bind Jonathan's hand and feet. His body bowed back so he couldn't move. With Jonathan secure, Sam ran over to Anya and untied her. As soon as she released, she fell into his arms, sobbing. Shh, he murmured, stroking his hand up and down her back as he held her to him. He couldn't think of anything else to say, so he kept his mind on practical matters. Your phone work out here, Sean? He asked. Sean had ripped off his shirt and torn it into strips. He applied pressure to the stab wound in Tori's side and wrapped it securely with the extra strips of cloth, before pulling out his phone at Sam's request. He nearly fell over in relief when he had a bar. Yeah, I'm calling. Where are we exactly? Sam swore under his breath. He had no idea, having been more focused on following the trail than paying attention to where it was going. We're behind the Collin place. About 2 miles from Fourth Line, Anya told him against his chest. He nearly laughed in his relief and relayed the information to Sean and direct the emergency vehicles to them. With nothing left to do but wait, Sam picked Anya up and carried her over to a fallen log. He sat down on it with her cuddled in his arms while she cried out her pain and anger and grief. Chapter 10. Tori hadn't had to stay at the hospital. She'd been lucky. The wound hadn't been that deep, so they'd simply given her some pain meds, stitched her up, and told her she was free to go. Anya had accompanied her in the ambulance, leaving Sam and Sean to talk to the police and take the horses home. So Tori met her in the waiting room and slowly, carefully, lowered herself to sit beside her best friend. I think I'm still in shock. I haven't quite realized that Galaxy is gone, she admitted in a low tone as she leaned her head against Anya's shoulder. Anya sighed and stroked Tori's hair. She knew the cut in Tori's side was nothing compared to the psychological pain she was going through. would be going through every time she walked by Galaxy's empty stall and the reality of his death crushed her. Galaxy had been Tori's first horse, and she'd had the gelding for 13 years, having been given him for her 10th birthday. They were the same age, making the connection that much stronger for a young girl with her first love. Anya knew it wouldn't have been many more years before Tori would have had to put the old man down, but it was far different knowing that he had been murdered rather than given the peaceful forever sleep of euthanasia. "Can we go home now?" Tori asked, her tone plaintive. "We're just waiting for Sam. He'll be here any minute," Anya assured. She wasn't surprised that Tori quickly drifted off. It had been an emotional day, to say the least, and there was only so much a body and mind could take before just shutting down. Anya sighed and closed her own eyes. A tap on her shoulder startled her, and she jolted, which woke Tori. "Come on," Sam said gently as he helped both women to their feet. "Let's go home." He loaded them into his truck, being careful of Tori's wound, and drove them home in silence. When they arrived, he helped them out and into the house and accompanied the girls upstairs. He watched from the doorway as Anya tucked Tori into bed. "Are you okay?" he asked, when she exited the room and closed the door firmly behind her. She sighed and held his hand as they went back upstairs to the living room. "Not really. It just feels so surreal, and I can't quite get a grip on it all," she admitted tearfully as she sat with him on the comfy old blue couch. She hugged the yellow pillow to her chest and looked up at Sam with haunted eyes. "It's your brain's way of protecting you from the trauma." She nodded and leaned into him, closing her eyes as he put his arm around her. It felt right to be in his arms. She felt safe and comforted when she was with Sam. And she slept. In the morning, she woke up alone on the couch with a throw tucked around her. She smiled to herself at Sam's thoughtfulness and wrapped it around her shoulders as she got up. She went up to Tori's room and found her sitting on her bed, clutching her pillow as silent tears rolled down her face. "Hey, sweetie," she greeted and moved to sit beside her and put a comforting arm around her. "I called in sick," Tori said, her normally strong voice a mere thread of sound. Anya just nodded and stroked Tori's dark hair. "Can I borrow your Bible?" "Of course, anything you need." "Jonathan killing Galaxy to make him pay for what he considered my sins just made me think about what you keep telling me about Jesus dying for me," Tori explained without Anya having to ask. "I never really understood it, never appreciated what you told me until I saw it with my own eyes. I want to read about what happened to Jesus for myself to see if it's the same." Her eyes filled and she looked away, blinking rapidly to stem the flow. "Even though I already know," she whispered and broke down in sobs. Anya hugged her friend to her. "There is a difference, Tori. Jesus died of his own free will to save your life. Galaxy was murdered by a madman." "I know, but it feels the same." She took a shuddering breath and pulled back so she could look Anya in the eye. "I want to honor what Jesus did for me, Anya. Tell me how." "By believing, by accepting his gift to you, by loving him for it enough to obey him, to follow him," Anya answered softly, tears stinging at her own eyes with joy at the thought of her best friend finally becoming saved. She'd never pushed the issue, but she talked openly and honestly about God around Tori, had answered the few questions Tori had asked over the years. "I can do that," Anya agreed. "I want to do that. I believe." Anya hugged her as the tears spilled down her face. "Do you think we can go out and get me my own Bible?" Tori asked against Anya's hair. Anya smiled through her tears and nodded. "Now that's some shopping I'd be happy to do." Tori's laugh was a bit waterlogged, but it was there, and it was more than Anya could have hoped for. "Anya, I need to talk to you," Brendan told Anya a few days later as he walked up to the stall she was cleaning. She paused in her work and gave him her full attention. "I want you to know that I've had an offer of employment at a ranch up north," he informed her without preamble. "I see," Anya said, blinking in shock, not really seeing at all. "Are you going to take it?" "Yes." "When are you planning to leave?" "Today." "So soon?" She was almost annoyed at the lack of notice, but understood how difficult it would be for him to tell her with all that had been going on lately. She nodded. "Do you want to take Boulder with you?" "I do." "Then he's yours." "I can't do that," he said with a frown, shaking his head to decline her offer. "I'll pay a fair price for him." "He's yours, Brendan," she told him firmly, putting down her pitchfork and hugging him. "Take care of yourself, okay? And don't be a stranger." He nodded and walked away. She turned back to her work, though it was hard to see with the tears clogging her vision. So much was changing, and she was feeling overwhelmed, like she couldn't keep up. Jonathan was in jail and would be put away for a long time for attempted murder. Tori was saved and reading her new Bible with a relish that surprised Anya, but didn't at the same time. She knew Tori needed something to hang on to, something to help her through her grief and pain. Anya knew no better comforter than God. Tori would be okay. Brennan was leaving, and she was in love with Sam. She sighed and went back to work. There was always work. For her, the work soothed and healed and gave her time to think when she needed it. There was nothing quite as wonderful to her as the familiar comfort of the sounds and smells of the barn, the joy and frustration of training, the mindless labor of mucking the stalls and cleaning tack. There was more, so much more to it, but those were the basics. That's what it boiled down to day after day. She got back to work and let the familiar rhythm comfort her while she thought things through, conversed with God. It was the best time for prayer and reflection as far as she was concerned. That night at dinner, Anya learned that Brennan had already left. He'd packed up and gone, planning to send for Boulder once he was settled in his new job, in his new town. Sam watched Anya the entire meal, wondering what she was thinking. She had a little crease between her brows, a sure sign that her mind was in overdrive. Sam, I need to talk to you, she told him after the meal, putting her hand gently on his arm. All right, he said, and followed her out of the room. He thought of 1,000,001 things Anya would want to talk to him about as they sat in the living room together. Sam, with Brennan gone, I want you to be the foreman. Anya, she held up a hand, cutting him off. I don't want you to answer tonight. I've already thought a lot about this, Sam. I can trust you. You've proven to me that under that thick skin, you care about the horses, about this place, about me. I love you, Sam. Now that she told him, she didn't quite know what to say next. There wasn't a speech in all the world that could help her now. He pulled her into his arms, effectively cutting her off, and kissed her soundly. I love you too, he whispered and held her close. Anya was safely held in his arms, and suddenly the future was that much brighter. This was a change she would embrace with everything in her. Thank you, God, she murmured it in her heart. The end of part 1.